Every Marine is infantry. In fact, when I joined the Marine Corps, the way they said it was every Marine is a rifleman. That meant before I got to flight school, I went to school to become an infantry officer. I learned to shoot all of the weapons and I learned to lead Marines on the ground. And when I was in my Marine Corps training, I understood the massive power of the synergistic approach to warfare that the Marine Corps took. You see, the Air Force thinks about airplanes, and the Army thinks about the guy on the ground, and the Navy thinks about the ships, but the Marine Corps brings all of them together. Artillery, tanks, the infantry, and the air into one synergistic force that's there to accomplish a single mission. Well, in your business, you have a single mission too. Your job is to create more income, more impact, and a greater lifestyle for the owner, and that's you. On today's show, I'm going to be interviewing one of my friends, a guy who's worked with some of the biggest brands and companies in the world, and his message is one of synergy, bringing all components of your business together to flat out get it done. EdTalks Live is next. Hey, what's up, party people? My name's Ed Rush, 5-time #1 best-selling author, your host for the most positive place on the planet for insanely implementable ideas. Jump in on chat on the right-hand side if you're on YouTube and below if you are on Facebook. Today's interview with George Thorne will be transformational for you when you implement it. You're going to be hearing from somebody who's been there, done that, and still doing it. Don't forget, we are here at 10 o'clock Pacific every single Tuesday and Thursday. What's 1 o'clock Eastern time for you? If you're not in either of those time zones, do the math. And we'd love to have you join us here on the live show. Today, we're going to be moving fast. My team is going to be highlighting your comments. So if you put a comment in the chat on the right-hand side or the left-hand side, you're not even going to have to wait for me to pull it up. We're going to be just pulling those up as we go on today's interview. And don't forget, we got some great new stuff coming up and a format change. In fact, we have a brand new show coming out in March. Okay, so we're going to be doing EdTalks live on Tuesdays, and on Thursdays, mystery show. I'm going to be telling you about that in just a moment. So without any further ado, I'm going to bring on my guest. I'm going to do an intro to him, but I want to bring him on and just say hello because he's such a great guy. What's up, George? Good to see you, buddy. How are you?
Good morning. How are you doing? Good to see you, Ed.
First of all, it's an honor to have you on the show, man. We've been talking about this for a few months now. And by the way, if you just joined us, today's show is called Confessions of an Ad Man. You're talking to a guy, like I said, who's been there, done that, and still doing it. We're going to get into his story, but more importantly, we're going to get into, I've got this 7 points of power in front of me, which is George's tool for assessing the strength of a company. We're going to go through the 7 points today so that you can assess your business and totally get it rocking. But let me give you a quick introduction to George. George Thorne is an award-winning marketer, communicator, columnist, motivational speaker, life coach. He's the co-author of a book called GPS for Success, which he wrote with Dr. Covey and John Gray. He's got a 30-year plus marketing and advertising career, won more awards than he's got fingers and toes to count, and has developed a system called One Voice. That's what we're going to be talking about today. I want to read you a client list. This should be enough to show you that this guy knows what he's talking about. He's worked with companies like Audi. You ever heard of Audi before? Princess Cruises, Cobalt Boats, which I would love it if Cobalt would just send me one of those free. That'd be awesome. Delta Queen, Steamboat Company, Northern Arizona Healthcare, Rossignol, the ski company, all right, Costa Cruises, McDonald's, Church's Chicken, Hush Up, the Church's Chicken commercial's on. It's the commercial, by the way. MGM Grand, Del Webb Resorts, and a whole bunch more. But he's here to talk to you today about how to create one voice in your organization. George Thorne, welcome to the show, my man.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. It's so good to be here.
I don't see a copy of 21 Day Miracle on that bookshelf back there. No, it probably is. I'm just messing with you.
It's over here. It's on chapter.
It's like dog-eared copies.
Absolutely. So let me start off with an extreme example of why I'm doing what I'm doing. We had a few years ago the opportunity, we got to them too late, but an internationally recognized car company that was really excited about doing an advertising campaign. And they'd been working on it for months with their agency, on and on and on. And we wanted to do this just before, but they got so excited about their advertising that we didn't have the opportunity. We literally got to them just a few days before they were ready to launch, and they did. They spent $60 million in television advertising and did not move the needle one iota on market share or revenues. $60 million.
Whoa.
Nothing else. Why? Because they didn't have, there were some issues around their dealer network. It wasn't worked out. Some issues with the various car models. But too often, people think of marketing as being the do-all for the answer, the panacea for everything. And as you wisely pointed out, it's about synergy. It's organic. It's about getting the whole organization working together. The last few years that I was in the agency business, I would literally go around and ask people, CEOs, marketing people, agency, tell me what marketing is. And I would invariably hear people get all excited, their eyes would get, and they go, well, it's, well, you know. And I said, well, how do you plan, budget, and execute? Well, you know.
Wait, that was the answer? Well, you know,
I swear, that is time and again, that's what I heard.
My goodness.
The point is, I was in the advertising business for a whole lot of years before I really understood what marketing is.
Yeah.
And I'd researched it and really got into it. And what I found, the big boy said, marketing is everything you do to get and keep customers.
Ooh, okay. So somebody put that in chat. Marketing is everything you do to get. That's interesting too, because I find that most businesses spend their time thinking about how to get new customers.
Absolutely.
But very, very little on how to keep.
Absolutely. One of the major consulting firms did some research on this subject. They found that a 2% increase in retaining customers will result in a 10% decrease in your operating cost overall.
Wow.
So what if I were to go in and ask a company, any company, one question: how are you doing at retaining customers? What's it look like? What's your percentage of repeat customers? That tells me so much about where the company is.
Wow.
Or isn't, right? But you're absolutely right. In all my years of experience, so many folks spend their time acquiring, getting customers. And the reason I created my One Voice program is I got tired of doing advertising for companies and watching people run in the front door and go out the back almost. Because some aspect, again, to your point, I love the word, the synergy, the teamwork wasn't there. And what's brought all of this about is there's so much competition now. If there's some factor in the company that isn't working for you, you just go down the street to somebody else.
Yeah.
You know, and it happens every day. So I wanted to create a program that was simple, because what's really important, as you well know, like in the Marines, like any organization, everybody comes to the table with a different perspective. In business, you have marketing, you have the IT person, finance, they all see it through their own lens. We have to make it very fundamental so everybody gets it, so everybody can relate to it. So that's why in virtually every marketing book, they list some version of these 7 things. And again, I'd like, if it makes sense, I'd like to invite people to write down in their computer on a piece of paper these 7 points, and I'll indicate them again. Products and services.
Hang on to that real quick, because we're going to go through this. So there's 7 points of power that George is. You're gonna grade your business, okay? So grab a pen and something to write, grab a pen and something to write on. But before I do that, I want to go back really quickly to this synergy point. I want to give you an example that I experienced, and I think when we met at the golf course that one day, I told you this story. But I went into Toyota with a car that's actually still in my driveway. And the car required several $1,000s in maintenance. I think it was some sort of transmission thing or something. And I said to the guy, this wasn't the service department guy. This was the guy who was in charge of the service department. And I said to him, it's $2,000. It seems to me that I may be able to just trade this car in and probably get something else for less than I'm paying for this car right now. And he said, wow, yeah, you might be able to do that. And I said, well, do you think maybe you could ask somebody like what they would give me for this car and what I could get the same car but in a new model for? And he goes, well, I'm sure somebody in our sales department would be happy to Anyway, the long story is nobody talked to me about the car. And so I called a friend of mine who works for General Motors parts. And I said, look, you need to get your service people, if somebody's repair is over $1,000, to say to them, hey, I think we may be able to get you into a new car, and your payments may even be less than they are right now. I said, just have them say that. Just have them say, we may be able to get you into a new car. Your payments may be less. Would you be interested in that conversation? And then take them over to the salesperson. But it was unbelievable to me that I was trying to give this company money that they never got from me, by the way, because this guy would not make the connection between the service department and the sales department. Is that what you're teaching?
That's exactly. And may I add one more point?
Yeah.
How many billions, literally, of dollars has Toyota spent to get you in that showroom?
Yeah. I mean,
and you walk in. That is exactly the point. I have more case studies and war stories on that. They spend billions of dollars. You're literally asking for the sale, and I'm
there. Like I'm there. They put billboards everywhere. I'm standing in the dealership, not a 6-iron, a 9-iron away from the sales department.
Exactly.
So I think this is why this is so important. Now, as an entrepreneur listening to the show, you may not have a sales department and a service department. You may be you, but think about. So this has been my experience. And George, we're going to get into the list here in a second, but I get very animated about this topic. My experience is it's 20 times easier to get a person who's bought from me already once to buy again. Yeah. That's my tracking in my company. Absolutely. It's 20 times easier. Theoretically, that means I would have to send 20 emails to a prospect to get them to buy, and 1 email to a customer to get them to buy. It's amazing.
Exactly.
How much easier it is when you have that relationship. So
exactly. And so to take care of it, and one of the examples I'll talk about was, I don't know if anybody's ever had any problems with a phone company. Years ago, I got very upset with a phone company, canceled them. But what did they do after I canceled them because of poor customer service? They sent me a check in the mail for $50 to take my wife out to lunch. And I thought, why didn't you do that
before
when I was still your customer?
Yeah.
Now, that's precisely the point. And again, it goes back to, if you think about it, and I've thought about it a lot, if you think about it, so many companies look at marketing as a function in the company rather than as a function of the whole organization. Yeah. As you said, going back to your Marine, it takes everybody, it takes teamwork. In the opening of my book, I talk about a football team. What if half the people on the team had a plan and the others didn't? Well, I'm going to pass the ball off to you. No, it's not my job. Really? So it's that kind of thing that you have to, because the needs are so much greater because there's so much more competition today. So there's all these factors you got to look at. Again, otherwise, they're going to go down the street to someone else.
Really, really good. By the way, for those of you who just joined us, my name is Ed Rush. I'm here with my friend, award-winning marketer, George Thorne. We're talking about Confessions of an Ad Man. We're really talking about how to create a business that is whole.
Exactly.
Whole. Not a business that does one thing great, but a business that does 7 things really well. And we're going to get to that. By the way, hopefully you got your pen and your yellow pad, because I got mine sitting right in front of me. So George has 7 points of power. I'm cheating because I have them in front of me, but let's go. Let's go through the 7 points. Be taking notes in chat and certainly put your questions and comments in there as well. So George,
absolutely.
Over to you.
So let's think about the first one. Is I list as products and services, and I talk about the fact, obviously, if you have the right product at the right time, it can increase your sales 100, 200, 1,000%. Anybody ever heard of Tesla? Tesla, in the last few years, now has a market capitalization. They are bigger than the other 3 major car companies, U.S. car companies combined. Think about that. Because they hit the right product. Elon Musk knew about the right product at the right time. So the impact is just extraordinary in what that can do to your revenues. And so, but a lot of it too is knowing what you want to do, what you're really after in your business, right? So that's going to be a whole lot of things, but it can be a new product. It can be polishing off an old product. But again, as you said, Ed, if people are writing it down, just rate in your own mind. Just don't put a lot of thought into it. Just 1 to 5. How would you rate the quality of products, the demand for products in your company, 1 through 5. 1 poor, 5 is the absolute best. Not a big deal. Just write down that number. See what you think.
So products and services, and for most of the people who follow me, those products would be digital products or physical products or books or events or Zoom trainings or YouTube live trainings like the ones that we're doing now. So write down your products and services and give yourself a rating, 1 to 5, 1 to 10.
Exactly.
Give yourself a rating on that, and how potentially we'll talk about even some ways to improve that. Good.
Exactly.
All right.
So let's move on to pricing. 1 to 5, how good of a value in your customer's mind are your prices? And there's a whole lot of things that go into that. Again, you mentioned one of my favorite clients that I had an opportunity to work with several years ago, Cobalt Boats. One of the finest, Pac Sinclair, one of the finest business people I've ever had the opportunity to meet. He was so quality oriented. So it was just unbelievable. As you know, Cobalt had a tendency to be a little on the high side, price wise. But Pac figured out how to streamline operations and cut his costs down and keep his boat. Literally before, you could buy 2 boats for 1 Cobalt. He figured out how to cut it down so his prices were no more than 15% of his competition. The result was his sales doubled. So he brought down his prices and doubled his revenues. And again, one of the finest men, one of the finest companies I've ever had the honor to work with. Just amazing. So other examples, great examples, Southwest Airlines. But on the other end, it depends greatly what kind of company you want to be. Do you want to be the low-cost leader? Do you want to be perceived as the quality company, which could be your product, it could be your customer service, your image, whatever? Do you want to be a niche company, which can sometimes be all of that, but you're focused on a very narrow market, which, by the way, is the most profitable business there is in the greater scheme of things?
I hope you caught that. By the way. George, who's been doing this for a long time, has such a wealth of wisdom. Sometimes these sentences go by and you just drop the bomb on. That's really important, that niche aspect
Absolutely.
of pricing. It's a lot easier to. So let's say you have a productivity course called Productivity for Everyone. And then you have another one called Productivity for Orthodontic Dentists. You're going to have a better chance selling the orthodontic dentist one because it's niched down product. So I always tell people you're better off creating 10 niche products than 1 general product.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Absolutely.
So if your answer to the question, I always ask, who's your product for? If you say everyone, it's not. It's not.
Yeah. If I talk to a client and they tell me their customer is everyone, yeah.
So you said, but this is interesting because you mentioned Cobalt and Southwest Airlines, but in the first example on product, you mentioned Tesla, and Tesla has really created this niche of high end. I mean, their cars are completely different. And my former business partner, Mike Koenigs, bought the original Tesla Roadster, which was basically their first car. It was the car that they used to fund the rest of their cars. That was a very high-end, very expensive car that, maybe didn't justify the price tag, but it had this allure to it anyway that did justify the price tag. So yeah, I mean, sometimes you're low, sometimes you're high. In the kind of business that we're in, that most of us are in, the information product business, my experience is most people don't charge enough, and that creates its own problem. You charging too low creates this delta where people are like, wait a second, if he's so great, why is it so cheap? So there's a lot of considerations when it comes to
pricing. Amplify exactly what you said. When we were had our agency, we would go after clients that charged more because there's an association with if you're charging a good price, the quality goes with it. And it's sometimes, and as you well know, which is what you just said, that if you discount your prices too much, there's an equation, well, gee, it must not be that good. And you see that time and time again. So, but the other half of pricing, to your point, is value.
Yeah.
So your friend, your business partner saw value for a lot of reasons in getting that Tesla.
Yeah.
Him, whether it's 20,000 or 100,000, he had a lot of reasons he wanted that Tesla, and that was a value for him. He's an innovator. He's a leader. He's an experimenter. So, the price value thing is very closely related. It's not so much price, but what's the value perception in customers' minds. So, okay, we'll keep moving.
He's the guy. I mean, I drive. This is a side point, but I've driven. Cars traditionally have not been like a big thing for me. So my first car was a Buick LeSabre that I bought from my dad. My second car was a Buick Park Avenue that I bought also from my dad. I've got a minivan out here. I do have a Mercedes, but this is a partner of mine. We would do these like $90,000 coaching days. He would drive up in his Tesla, and I would drive up in a used pickup truck because I kind of like pickup trucks.
Yeah.
And finally, he goes. I pulled up one day, and he goes, "When are you going to get a car that's brand representative?" So that's when I bought my Corvette. I didn't even want. I'm like, I mean, I did want the car eventually, but like my point is, you know, the value to him was more than just the value of the car. It also had to do with his own brand, which is actually when you talk about value, there's a lot of considerations.
And if you pull up in your pickup truck versus your Corvette, people are going to assume you might charge a different price given on, right?
Yeah. Yep.
It's very subtle and very subconscious, but yeah.
That pickup truck was beat up, man. I went to the dealer. I bought it from like a traditional used car guy, like a real used car guy, like gold chains and everything. And I just brought a check, you know, because I was just going to write a check. And he goes, you know, he had like this Middle Eastern accent. He goes, you know, many people finance the car. I go, I don't want to finance. I want to give you a check. He goes, there may be advantages to financing. I go, there may be advantages to me giving you a check. Anyway, this side story.
No, that's absolutely true. Yeah.
We covered. George and I are just having fun now. So we covered. By the way, those of you who just joined us, I'm here with my friend George Thorne. You can tell by the way we're laughing together that we know each other. And we're talking about how to create a synergistic company that has one voice. We're on 7 points of power. We've covered 2, which is products and services and prices. Your job is to rate yourself, so go ahead and throw that in chat. And we're moving on to number 3, which according to my checklist here is points of sale. Take us there.
Now, a question I love to ask owners, CEOs, how many places can people buy your products or services? Right? And that sometimes makes CEOs and owners get a little cross-eyed because do you really know, and are you prepared at each point of sale for that customer to be able to buy? If it's on a personal basis, is there someone answering the phone? Is there someone in the store? Whatever. So, but just a couple of quick examples. There was a luxury car dealer on the East Coast who all of his costs were the same. He moved his location closer to the freeway, greater visibility. Sales went up 42%.
Whoa. Wow.
Domino's Pizza. We all know Domino's. When they went on the internet, are you ready? Sales went up over 5,000%.
Oh my goodness.
So, but think about it. This is back to your, and I love your word synergy because it's absolutely the core of it all. The product is the same. The price is the same. Same people are making it. Same cost to turn on the lights, to buy the pizza dough. But they did one thing different that's fed, pardon the pun, fed what the customer needed at that point in time. And it's the convenience of the point of sale on the internet and going to their site to be able to order pizza. 5,000%.
Wow.
And that's my point is that often, you know, owners, and they live with their products 24/7. They're beating themselves up. How do I make this better? Look at all these different things. Sometimes it's tweaking something over here, and you don't have to redo your product. You don't have to change your pricing. But maybe if there's a different way to approach it to reach people. One of the greatest definitions I ever heard from one of the best salespeople who was multimillionaire. We don't sell anybody anything. We remove all the obstacles in their way.
Oh, that's good.
I think that's brilliant because it's like your Toyota experience. You know, here you're telling them, I'm here, I'm ready to deal, and you just ran into an obstacle. He didn't want to respond to you.
I mean,
pardon me. Go ahead.
And didn't even have a category to respond to.
Exactly.
You know, it's interesting you mentioned Domino. I have a little point of sale. I'm going to tell a quick story about me. damaging admission, I'll say. But the interesting thing about Domino's, you said when they went on the internet, but Domino's, when they started, got point of sale right too, because basically they only built Domino's next to colleges. So for anybody who wanted a pizza at midnight, for whatever reason, a college kid might have pizza at midnight, Domino's was right there. My wife, by the way, so about a year and a half ago, I did a product launch, a new product, which went great. But I rely a lot on my email list for much of my communications. Mm-hmm. So my wife, I was getting ready to start delivering this product, and I said, "Yeah, I just got done this product launch." And she goes, "You had a product launch?" And I go, "Yeah, like this whole last week, webinars and emails and stuff." And she goes, "Oh, I didn't even know." And I'm like, "How did you not know?" And she goes, "Well, I follow you on social media, and I didn't see anything there." And I go, "Oh yeah, good point." Good point. So I realized, I'm like, maybe I should probably say something on my Instagram about the launch. So you get used to, as a business owner, your way of doing things, but sometimes you don't realize someone might not be on your email list. Their friend, they might be over here on your Instagram. So anyway.
And I also, to add to that, I also have a theory that most owners in business, they're really good at one thing, whatever it is they've created. And sometimes to look at all these other things, they just haven't thought about it. It's not, you have to be brilliant. You just got to, we don't know what we don't know. And that's essentially it. But another point of sale, real quick story. So years ago, I took my two young sons into one of the world's most famous fast food restaurants, not in the restaurant, but the drive-through, to get a little dinner. Ordered, pulled up to the window, and there in the glare of the headlights is a rat going across the driveway who had to be at least 10 inches long. Now, being in marketing, I thought, I'm going to tell the manager, I'm not going to he has a right to know. And so I said, there's a rat. You want to come out and see this rat? I swear to God, his answer was, no, every time somebody tells me about it, by the time I get out there, the rat is gone.
Oh.
Now, here's what's important. I knew at that point, their $500 million advertising account was up for review.
Oh.
I also knew that there was no amount of advertising that would ever get me to go back to that location again.
Yeah.
And that's the point, is all these things working together, and that people on one end of the company, one end of the organization, are spending all these dollars and working. And this guy's seeing a rat. And Ray Kroc, as you know, when he built the company, his whole thing was on cleanliness. And he'd get upset if there was a napkin on and he'd turn over in his grave. But that's let me have my food from the place that brings out the 10-inch rat,
I have an old marketing friend who you might know, Dan Kennedy. Dan said that kind of marketing. He said for you women, that kind of marketing is like this: great guy, great smile, great hair, great car, chronic halitosis. That's
exactly
from 4 feet away. And
exactly.
The point is exactly right. Everything's great except for this one thing, and you'll never get anywhere near it. So
I always think of, to that point, that's excellent. I always think of baking a cake. I have the best chocolate. I have the best frosting, and I leave out the butter.
Yeah, that's right.
If I leave out one ingredient, what's going to happen? That cake is not going to do well, my tummy.
Going just a little bit deeper in this, because I find most business owners can't see that, frankly. I mean, it's like it's like the cobwebs in the corner of your office that have been there for a while, so you stop seeing them, and then somebody comes in and is like, "What's with the cobwebs?" Mm-hmm. So what recommendations do you give to business owners who, and it's true for me too. Like sometimes you can't see your own stuff. What would you give?
If at the bottom of the page, and I was going to get to it, but I'll get to it now. So the first part of my program is to work with the clients, go through who's your customer, what are your products and services, pricing it into the 7 points of power, to see where they are. Then I go out and talk to their customers. And research can get really complicated. There's PhDs doing it, but I want to make it very simple. If 8 out of 10 people like your product, that's how good it is.
Yeah.
If 5 out of 10 have a problem with your pricing, that's what it is. So to bring back, so managers can see, because again, you're living inside, no matter how hard we try, we're living inside a certain bubble. And it's to get out of that bubble and first see, where is your company now? Where do your customers see your company now, and potential customers? And I have a great story for that down the line here. But, and then bring that together and, okay, this is what you can do in order to improve it. And often, back to one of the original points, you don't have to recalibrate your entire company. Sometimes it's tweaking this and tweaking that and looking at it in a new way, just to get the input of the customer. It can make,
yeah,
right. So
really
that's the way it's. And I learned this the hard way. I used to do advertising, and I never did research. And I did it for one company, and I thought I did, and I created. It was for one of the finest Cadillac dealer in America. Wonderful man. And we did a whole advertising campaign with the English actor Peter Lawford, and music behind it, and the whole thing, and created the Cadillac of automobile dealerships. Well, it was so good that it scared people off because people thought it was so expensive. 2 weeks later, there's a great deal going on at this particular Cadillac company, and sales went through the roof. I was wrong. After that, I would not, and I had a pretty good reputation as a creative director, as a copywriter. After that, no, I want to know what the customer thinks, and that's more important to this program.
Dude, this is a great interview, and if those of you watching, hopefully you can see the nuggets of just experience. Thank you for sharing this. Those of you just joined us, by the way, my name is Ed Rush. This is EdTalks Live. We are on at 10 o'clock Pacific, 1 o'clock Eastern, every Tuesday and Thursday. I'm here with my friend, award-winning marketer George Thorne. I just tossed your intro while we were off, but I mean, some of the companies that George has worked with, McDonald's, Cobalt Boats, and cruise companies. I mean, some of the biggest Audi, some of the biggest organizations in the world. We're talking about the 7 points of power. We just did the first 3: product, pricing, points of sale. You got another P coming our way. What's number 4?
People sales. Back to your Toyota.
Oh, so you have people sales and people customer service. I see. There's
Correct.
2. Okay.
Right.
People sales.
Just to differentiate it.
Okay.
Exactly to the point, as you said when we started, so many owners are looking at only for new business. And I wanted to separate it out. The customer service comes afterward. They did a study a few years ago among automobile dealers across the country. They found, this is incredible, 87% of customers can be swayed to buy a particular car from a dealer once that salesperson has established a relationship with them.
Yeah.
So if you would go in, and that, because as you know, most dealers anymore handle several product lines. Well, if one product line has a better deal they get an extra spiff or whatever, and you have it. Well, Ed, let me tell you, that Toyota is really good, but if we go look at this Hyundai, or we also sell Corvettes, whatever, and he talks to you long enough, and he has a relationship with you, there's a very good chance that they can switch you. And again, think about that in terms of all the money that's gone into a particular car company advertising. And now it's an entirely different subject. It becomes the relationship between the salesperson and the potential customer. Another company we worked with was one of my favorite companies. It was a preschool company, and the people who owned it were very dear friends of mine. It's called Palo Alto Preschools. They sold out to Gerber. And they found themselves in a situation. They had wonderful people who were taking care of the children, but those people were very shy about asking for the order. So one of the things we did is we created coupons for a free week so that they would literally bring the coupon in and hand it to establish that relationship. And that overcame a shortcoming in that company, because that was a big, again, wonderful products and services they offered for children. Extraordinary what they're doing with kids. Extraordinary. But the strength of the directors was also a weakness, because they were good with little children. They weren't good at closing the deal, right? Mm-hmm. So we had to take that. And they had done a lot of television advertising that did nothing for them, because for exactly that reason. So again, people sales.
Yeah, I mean, you have. There's a story that's worth researching or reading. The greatest salesman in the world, greatest car salesman in the world, is again Joe Girard, who sold, I think, 1,452 cars in a single year, over 13,000 cars in a 15-year span. Let me put it that way. It's a lot. And part of the reason he did it is because he knew that every 3 years somebody was buying a new car. So he just kept the list of the people that bought from him 3 years before and contacted them 3 years later and said, it's about time for you to start looking at your next car. Next thing you know, he sold another car. So that's people sales.
Exactly. And if I'm not mistaken, he also would send them a birthday card. He would send them, he would keep a relationship. What happens 90% of the time? You go in and buy a car. Once you're out of the door, and that's why I like to say a sales. It shouldn't be a close. It should be an open. Right.
Good. Very good.
Sales, the greatest word in sales is open, not close. That's the worst word that you could possibly do.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. By the way, it's not all that often that I hear something new in these interviews, and that's that. It's not. How did you say that? It's not about getting a close.
It's not. You don't want the close. And I've heard, and you and I both heard this our entire lives. Oh, we're going to go get the close. Really? How about let's get the open? It's the beginning.
Oh man,
not the end.
Oh, you're going to hear me quote that. Y'all know. You're going to hear me keep saying that. I love that. I love it. All right, let's go to people. We got to get cranking. People, company, customer service.
Customer service. And real quick, I'll go back and reiterate about the phone company. Virtually everyone has had some issue with the phone company. And again, the products are the same. The pricing is the same. What's the difference? The customer service. And you have a bill and it doesn't work, but you can't get an answer. Or you talk to 10 people and everybody gives you 10 answers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So customer service. And again, marketing is everything you do to get and keep customers. And that's why it's so important. So
good.
The next one on the list is positioning, which gets into branding.
I think you just did customer service.
Yeah.
All right. Now we're okay.
And so positioning.
I got my list. I'm taking notes, man. Product, pricing, point of sale, people sales, people customer support, and the
next is positioning.
Next one is positioning.
Right. And if I could spend my professional life doing one thing, it would be that.
I'm with you, man.
Years ago, in the last 10 years, a major study was done around the world among 1,800 companies and their customers in all different categories: real estate, computers, TV, everything. They found, they found only 20% of customers could tell the difference between any products in any category. So people spend all this money advertising and whatever it is, social. If there's not a clear difference, people don't know what it is that you're trying to sell, which differentiates you from anybody else.
So, okay. Take, for example, like T-Mobile and AT&T.
Right.
Based on what you just said, essentially 20% of the consumer base truly knows any difference between those two companies. Everybody else is like, what's the point? And all those companies are spending all that money on brand awareness advertising that it's not contributing to changing those 80% of the people buying it, right?
That's exactly the point. Exactly the point. And spend more time, again, synergistically getting the whole company on what is it? And like marketing, the real definition of branding is the promise made and kept by the entire organization, which is experienced by the customer. Ooh. So if you're advertising something, are they going to get, that's the brand promise. The brand experience, what are you getting once you get there? And it has to start from the owner on down. That becomes, and you think of some of the biggies, you think of Nike, just do it. Their mission statement, it says every person in the world, in essence, is an athlete, as you know. Geico, 15 minutes will save you 15% or more. They live that mantra all the way throughout their organization, and on and on and on. So the brand, but to find that differentiation is everything, because actually all what you just said, probably obviously it's only well over half of the advertising dollars spent
Yeah.
because we're just going to we're going to show you what our products are and our features, but it's not going to really be any different than anybody else. And because there's so much product parity, what makes you different? What makes you special?
Very good.
Right.
Last one on our list is promotion.
Promotion. One of my favorite stories, one of my favorite companies I worked with, the Delta Queen Steamboat Company, the wonderful people. And they spent well over $1 million a year advertising directly to the end user. And they would run their ads, write in for a brochure. Once you figure out what cruise you want, call us and we'll book you. We did the research, and their sales at the time were about $26 million. We did the research. We also interviewed all of the travel agents. We found out that 87% of their business was coming through the travel agents rather than direct end user. They were a business to business company, not a business to consumer company in that sense. I said, imagine what you're doing is you're standing there at the turnstile, keeping people out who want to come in. I mean, people were literally, but back to this, the agent or the salesperson can switch you. So here comes one of the other cruise lines. You sell one of our cruises, we'll give you a $500 spiff. Somebody come in wanting their, at any rate, the following Monday, they were having fam trips, bringing in travel agents to take a trip on their wonderful cruise line. And we ended up adding another cruise ship. Within 3 years, their sales had gone to 125 million. Again, everything, not all us, it's just who is your customer? One of the most important questions you can ask is to really understand who your customer is. When you understand that, then all the other stuff can fall in line. One of the things I'd like to say is we shouldn't call it marketing. We ought to call it customering, because that's what you're marketing. The old definition of marketing is what you do when you go to the grocery store and buy your, right? Yeah. So customering, you got 7 lures, right? Our products, our prices, and all of those together is what gets you your synergy, which is what gets you your success.
That's okay. So super interesting. So the idea with the cruise line is the customer, they thought the customer were like Ma and Pa Jones on the 50th anniversary trip, but the real customer was the travel agent that Ma and Pa Jones came and talked to.
Exactly.
Because the travel agent was going to steer them in the direction anyway. So
so the customer, your customer is your business to business customer. And I always talk about it to make it simple. Are you a one customer company or a two customer company?
Right.
You're talking to the end users, but who is your real customer? And so all of a sudden they can start doing more direct marketing to that other customer. And they can also add salespeople. Again, in the greater scheme of the operation, it's costing them X millions of dollars to open it minimally to add a few salespeople on who go out and talk to the folks and had a great relationship.
Really good. It's really good. In a moment, I'm going to show you where you can find out more about George. And in a moment, George, I'm going to ask you for some final thoughts. For those of you who just joined us, we're about to wrap up, but this has been an incredible interview with my friend, George Thorne, award-winning marketer. We're just talking about the 7 ways to really distinguish yourself as a company. It makes me think, it reminds me what you just said about, so for people who are professional speakers like you are, or like me, or like many people who watch this show, sometimes the customer is someone different. So for example, if you have a speakers bureau, like I occasionally get talks from a speakers bureau who books you to speak with a certain company. Well, the company is the customer, yes, but the speakers bureau is really the customer, because how well they book you in the future has a lot to do with how this person thinks you just did. Another one would be, for example, occasionally I'll have a person who will refer me to speak to someone else. Well, yeah, the person you're speaking for is the customer, but the referral person is too, because they may refer you or not in the future, depending on what that person says back to you. So thinking through who you're serving in the transaction is really interesting, very important.
And if I may add to that, your speakers bureau, if you have a relation with one person, they could bring you a multitude of clients, right? So that one customer can yield you 50 more, 20 more, 10 more. And
Right.
that's who is your customer is everything, because in that, again, that brings more focus.
Really, really.
So to kind of wrap up, and thank you again for this opportunity. It's obviously my passion is to explain a little bit of this, but it's getting everybody in the same room and having this discussion. I've been in discussions where I'd ask companies, and I have this workbook to take them through initially, and like you in your workbook, I ask them questions. I don't have the answers. I want to, I want to hear what you think. And I've seen people almost get in a fist fight when I ask, what are you selling to your customers? And then I let them go back and forth. Then I raise my hand. I say, if you can't agree, what's your poor customer supposed to do? What are you selling? Right. Yeah. So how important it is to get that, to codify, to write down what you're doing in each of these 7 areas right now. And then find out from the customer throughout, whether it's research, informal or formal, whatever, start asking customers, what do they think? And the biggest question, the best question you can ask in research, and I've been doing this for a lot of years, what can I do to get you to come back more often?
Ooh.
Customers will tell you. They will tell you what they want. They will tell you.
Huh. What can I do? What can I do to get you to come back more often?
Exactly. And it's amazing. They will tell you every time. They want to benefit from it too. So that's why in my world it becomes a win-win for everybody. So that's kind of the purpose of One Voice, is getting everybody going in the same direction. We used to show a flock of birds flying and then show them flying in formation. You probably know this, given your broad scope of experience. When they're flying in formation, they can fly 72% farther than a third. Right. And what happens, and I bet you know this, when the lead bird gets tired, that bird drops back. Tell me.
The lead bird goes to the back and just coasts for a little while.
Exactly.
I used to tell this story at live events. I said, and then the honking you hear, that's encouragement. They're encouraging each other. So I always say, like, whenever I see those geese fly overhead, I want to be like, honk, honk.
Exactly. Same thing in the company. Same thing.
I want to show your website real quick. And by the way, you ought to go here as you're watching this show. This is George's website. This is One Voice for Growth, and a discussion of what we just talked about, which is the total customer experience. It's worth bouncing around here. Follow George as well. It's worth your time. What you just heard today is what I call wisdom. There is a big difference in today's world between data, knowledge, and wisdom. And you're hearing from a guy who's been there, done that, still doing it. And you delivered, my friend, on that promise. We talked about 7 things: products, prices, point of sale, people in terms of sales, people in terms of customer service, positioning, and promotion. Now is a great time for me to give you the final word. So wrap it up for today's show.
I'm going to go back to your seminar that I had the honor to listen to a few weeks ago, where you talked about, in marketing, the real point is leads and conversion. The point is, how do you get those leads and how do you get those conversions? But at the end of the day, that is exactly, and it's then starting to look at what is your ratio of leads to conversions, right? And that is the ultimate point of what you're trying to do here, is to get how many leads can I, but again, what if you are you a niche marketer? Do you want, and you talked about, you've gone from trying to get a whole lot to you have your 200, I think you called it, of really prime customers that, or influencers that you like to work with, and the impact that can have on your business. So that's really, so I would say that, what are your leads? What are your conversions? What's your ratio of leads to conversions to leads? And then finally, getting all these things down, getting your team together, and it is about a team, then getting your customer input. What do you guys think these 7 things are? What are you doing now? What does your customer think? Any one of them can dramatically impact your sales.
So good, man. So good. Thanks for joining me, buddy. Make sure you go over to One Voice for Growth and see my friend George Thorne. We went a little bit longer than we were planning on, but man, we got some incredible information. I've got a page of notes, dude. And like I said, sometimes I just do these interviews, and other times I'm like new idea after new idea. And I've definitely got some things that I'm going to be implementing out of our show today. Don't forget, as you're watching, we're here live Tuesdays and Thursdays, 10 o'clock Pacific, 1 Eastern. There are some changes coming down the pike, baby. So we're going to shift the format of EdTalks Live to a more of a, well, you'll see. And then we're also going to add another show. So coming up in March, you're going to see there's 2 shows, one on Tuesday, one on Thursday. So stay tuned. If you haven't already done so, the button down here that says subscribe, click that button. You know you're going to want to have done that. There's a little bell next to that will tell YouTube, hey, tell Ed or tell me when the next EdTalks Live show is, and that's important to click as well. Thanks again, George. You, sir, are the man. Let's go off.
Thank you.
Learned from this incredible man. EdTalks Live is out.